putt from Anthony Barella. He ties the lead all square with Eagle McMahon through 13 holes. Likely being a drop-in for par, and he can close out his first ever major. Oh my goodness, Final, what just happened on 16?
Ladies and gentlemen, the 2023 European Open.
Hello and welcome back to coverage of the 2023 Finnish National Disc Golf Championships. We are happy to be bringing you round 2 back 9 MPO lead card coverage here at Mukkula Disc Golf Park. A very technical and difficult back 9 lies ahead, but this lead card well equipped to continue their strong performances. I'm Connor Wood, and with me, Elias Luukkonen.
What is up, Connor? What is up, viewers? Let's have a look very soon at what these guys did in the front 9. As we see the top 10 list, Niklas Anttila with a great 6 under front 9. He played super clean, claimed all of his birdies in the first 7 holes and then cooled off with a couple of pars at the end. And Teemu Lampainen, Miro Ryhänen also from our card hanging right in there. A little bit of separation within the top 10. You can see it's a difficult course and some of these top players really separating themselves from the field. And talking about separating, hole 10 is a great chance to do exactly that, as it is a very difficult, shapes best for a low overstable flex forehand. You want your forehand to be flying still straight through this gap, but right after the gap and these final branches on the right, you need to finish hard to the right, ideally with an overstable disc, overstable high-speed disc, and hopefully take a bit of a skip towards this basket. It's very difficult to park, and most good shots still end up a little bit left of the basket. So setting up for some great putts even after some good drives.
We have Niklas, our current leader, getting us started, shaping the fairway really nicely, but as you touched on, Elias, very difficult to get all the way right. A good putt there for Niklas, all things considered. And holes 8 through 12 we mentioned in the front 9 are very difficult to birdie, but very manageable pars. So the best players able to separate themselves on some tricky holes. We see a very nicely shaped forehand from Teemu as well. Almost identical distance to Niklas with a little bit of an extra roll, catching him, I believe, half meter or meter closer.
Yeah, both of those are some of the better drives you're ever going to see on this hole. And Miro, not being much of a forehand player, looks to be lining up a backhand roller. But that's a very tight line, and he has hit the first tree on the left. The backhand roller has almost no room to it, since you have some of those early trees on the left side. You don't really have you don't have the room to turn it over on the left side. So Miro is gonna have a difficult scramble from there.
Ville finding a lot of turnover on his forehand shape and unable to find the complete fade, catching the left side trees. Will still have a lot of distance, although out in the open, likely taking the most common score of a 3. Miro now needing to scramble from early on in the fairway, and he's able to push this to the edge of the bend, but very difficult to manufacture any sort of putt from where he is now. Likely playing for bogey. This is Ville from downtown. Really an incredible distance on his putt.
Yeah, good run there, and still gonna have some work left to do for the par. But as we saw on the front 9, Ville very confident on the putting green. As is everybody on the group. It's a common theme amongst the card mates and Niklas here. Not quite comfortable on that one though. One of the worst looking putts we've seen from him. And possibly going to give a stroke to Teemu here if Teemu can make this from the edge of the circle. Or just inside.
And we saw the rains falling. The grip of your putt, extremely important. Teemu finds his and finds his birdie along with it. Really nice moment for him. And you see him get out of there real quick, ready to move to the next hole. That is a great birdie for Teemu at a critical moment here in round 2. This is Ville's comeback putt for par. And a little bit low. His putt's normally very straight with a lot of up and down movement. Just a very horizontal line, and that one low the whole way. Unfortunate.
And now the rain is really coming down
Niklas
on
here
these
clearing
guys.
space.
There was a couple of moments in the round where the rain was pretty heavy. It's not a constant rain like this. This is actually the heaviest rain we've had so far throughout the round. And looking to the rain is probably going to stop within the next 10 to 15 minutes. And Niklas there with a good cleanup in the rain, able to just pitch it in.
As we see a mixed bag. 1 birdie, 1 par, and 2 bogeys. Very difficult hole 10, doing some damage to our lead card.
And moving on to another very difficult hole. 120 meters, although playing much shorter than that, probably closer to 80 or 90 meters as it is so far downhill. The fairway shapes the best for a slight anhyzer, slowly thrown anhyzer backhand that fades back at the end. Also, we see many players going for a hyzer forehand, just trying to push their hyzer through the gap and forward to the right, hopefully giving themselves a putt. This hole is really difficult to park once again, but we see a lot of people in that circle 2 range.
Teemu with a anhyzer backhand finding a roll off a double tree bounce. Looks to be center fairway with enough progress for a stress-free 3. We see Niklas here opting for that inside forehand hyzer that you touched on, and not really the play to be parked, but just to get into the fairway, and it looks like he's done that off a similar tree kick.
Yeah, the forehands tend to fade down and to the right of the basket. Quite a common landing zone to be circle 2 on the right side with the forehand. And Miro here with the backhand, but he has pushed it a little bit too straight here towards the left side, not getting that early turn. And that's going to be probably a long jump putt with some scrambling through the trees.
Ville getting this one very turned over and just not enough height to flatten out and continue its glide down the hill. He catches an early stone and likely just a jump putt approach for him as well. All 4 of our competitors here needing to do a little bit of work left to get to their putts, and a fantastic shot by Miro there, a well-shaped touch forehand.
Yeah, really the rain making some of these touchier shots more difficult. As this, I believe this might be one of the, if not the touchiest hole on the course. The gap is super small, and the angle that you have to hit is just precise. Ville here, probably trying to run it from far edge of circle 2. He's going way downhill there and able to give it a good run and settle just 5 meters away there. And I believe we might have missed Teemu's layup, but he's right there behind the basket for an easy par, as is everybody on the card.
And another hole, we had 74% of the field taking par, with a fairly even distribution between birdies and bogeys as well. And you can see why, the extremely demanding shape as well as the slope and the many trees. There's a lot of elements to this hole that you need to get right in order to have an open putt. Important moment for Ville now. And very solid, a similar distance to his previously missed putt, and a good way to get back on track in circle 1.
Yep, pretty difficult looking start to this back 9 for the card. Teemu only carding the birdie on the last hole, but no other birdies to be seen here, which is quite common for this middle stretch on the course. Is really known for producing not that many birdies and a lot of pars, and if you throw a bad shot, the bogey comes pretty easily.
Niklas really taking his time on that short putt, given the rain and the conditions. A very thoughtful player. He makes sure to put that one in.
As the wooded technical holes continue, this is a bit of a shorter one, this time going slightly uphill. 97 meters. You have a choice of two gaps. It's a hyzer shot either way around, but you can choose to go either this inside gap that the drone is flying through, or many of the more local players are going for around the outside for the smaller outside gap that does have more potential to be parked if you throw it well, but the gap is a bit tighter there. But it's gonna be interesting to see. I believe Teemu in the first round went for the outside gap, and he's doing that again with an overstable fairway.
It's quite reliable and able to crash into the slope just a little bit softer than the inside line, which often finds a touch more ground play. Niklas with a considerably more inside line. You'd have to think that's an early release, but quite a favorable result for him. He sneaks through to a circle's edge, although putting towards the slope behind it. That will leave him with a high risk, high reward situation here on 12.
And Miro here, kind of going in between the two gaps, not quite able to decide which one he wants to go for. Ends up hitting one of the trees in the middle. And the rain is just absolutely targeting these guys. But Ville, nevertheless, able to throw a good shot. He's gonna be, I believe, on the edge of the circle there, which is a great result, especially in these conditions.
And able to be putting back up the hill. We see Teemu give his bid. And just off the right side cage. This is Niklas. We see his distance at just about circle's edge, putting towards the slope. And an amazing putt at a crucial moment to retain his lead and extend that cushion over Teemu, who looks to be taking a 3. Niklas has found his first birdie of the back 9.
What a nice putt, and we had a great look at that angle that he's putting with. Perfect pace, great spin on the disc, and a flat release, as Ville also gets his first birdie of this back 9. Ville has had a bit of a difficult round so far, and unfortunately for him, the last holes on the course are not particularly easy, so he will really have to focus in if he wants to push that score under par.
Teemu securing a fairly stress-free par here. Remaining 2 behind Niklas, but still quite separated from both Ville and Miro. We saw at that front 9 check-in, many players, Lauri Lehtinen specifically, also matching Niklas's 6 under through the front 9, maybe putting pressure on these guys at 7 and 9 under, you could imagine at this point in the tournament. Always exciting.
HARIBO Click Mix. Monta hyvää pikkukarkkia, lakua, hedelmää ja rakeita. Mä tykkään niistä toukista. Näistä pehmeistä ja syöistä. Mä tykkään niistä kaikista. Niin mäkin. HARIBO Click Mix.
And we're moving up the hill, a pretty long walk up the hill. These players are going to be a little bit exhausted after the walk onto one of the longest par 3s you're going to play. It's 151 meters, going down the hill though, so playing probably closer to 130. You're trying to throw a low pushing hyzer. Ideally you want your hyzer to flip up just a little bit, get through the gap in the middle of the fairway and fade your way down towards this basket. Another hole that is pretty simple to par if you just get it somewhere down there, but a very difficult hole to get to inside the circle of the first.
You see Niklas pushing that fighting hyzer way down the hill and catching ground play on that fast green, skips past it and into the tree line on the left. a very good line, and you see still quite far away this green, requiring an incredible touch to stick softly, almost impossible to do given that you need to throw 151 meters on this par 3. And we see Ville getting caught up on the inside, although settling nice and soft still will require a good deal of touch on that fast green. We see Teemu now.
Yeah, Ville probably gonna have just a jump putt or a very soft backhand from there. And Teemu here, look at that height control. Able to just barely crest the hill. But he has actually done a rare mistake of pushing too far forwards. Quite often do you see results like Niklas, where the disc is skipping to the left after it hits the gap. And Miro here, with a beautiful looking line. This is the best looking shot of the group, I believe. But he has also pushed just a little bit too far. And that putt that both Teemu and Miro are left with, it's a pretty much unrunnable putt with that slopey green.
And Ville opting for that touch backhand. You saw he was completely blind, not close enough to the edge of the slope to have an open look at it. Gets the distance just right, but some significant fade to the left means he will be left with a tester putt for par. We see Miro simply laying up to this very fast green, knowing that the 2 is not quite required to match the field. And even some of these lead card players here, as we see a third pitch up there. Niklas with the lone chance to run it if he wants to.
Niklas with a good angle to run it, going towards the flat side. That's a bit of a soft run there, pretty safe. And he's gonna have an easy par. But Ville here, important putt once again, saving the par and not going back to over par on the round, which is important if he wants to still remain in the mix, as he's already 8 strokes back of Niklas.
As we look to see a par frame for our lead card, no shifting in the standings. They will be part of the 70% of the field that took the 3 here on 13. And Miro still yet to find his first birdie of the back 9.
And now it is time to move some of the more birdieable holes on the course, but with absolute huge bogey potential as well. Starting this last stretch on hole 14, a long, slightly downhill playing par 4. Off the tee you want to throw something straight towards the right side wood line with a good fade to the left. Hopefully don't fade too far left, because the OB on the left does pinch in right at where most of the bigger drives are landing. And if you throw a good drive, you're left with approach between 95 and 120 meters that ideally plays best for a hyzer forehand, going over the left side OB and fading back inbounds.
A fairly narrow fairway compared to some of the earlier holes. We see Niklas with a very nice shot, pushing the left side OB with the final curl of the disc, and sneaking out, does find the red flag from that spotter, simply playing for par at best now. And on, as you mentioned, one of the more attackable holes, an opportunity for all 3 of these guys to try and get a stroke on the leader, but Teemu has a lot of snap on this and very fortunate to kick back out into the open, although he'll be quite pinched on the angle of his second shot, the approach to the green.
Yeah, Teemu both pinched, having to go far around the outside, but also far away from the basket. He's gonna have upwards to 150 meters left compared to this drive from Ville. A beautiful shot, still challenging the left side OB, but Ville is gonna have around 110. So a very manageable distance. That's kind of where you want to be after your first.
And Miro matching that very nice looking backhand line, settles right next to Ville, and both of them executing cleanly off the tee. Both Teemu and Niklas finding a few struggles. We We have Teemu up first with some huge distance remaining, as you touched on, has known to have a good forehand, but this is very low and likely just a placement shot, using the low height to prevent any significant turn or fade and find the ground nice and early, knowing he's not playing for birdie.
Yep, pretty nice shot there. Gonna have just a short forehand up to the basket. But Miro here, playing the unconventional backhand, and look at that line. Just barely hit the last tree in the way, but he's inside the circle for a birdie. A great birdie on a hole that has big scoring potential. But Ville here, a beautiful looking forehand, needs a little skip at the end, but not that big of a skip. I believe he has gone to the right side OB. Wow, what a huge skip. That looked almost as a bit of an unfortunate break.
Yeah, that was many skips, not just one huge one, but consecutive. An unfortunate result for Ville, a very nice approach shot for Niklas. I thought out of the hand, Ville's shot was even very generously wide over the out of bounds, but surely throwing a disc with a lot of overstability given that ground play. We see Teemu pitching up nicely into the green. We will move to our putts now. Miro up first off his backhand approach, just within the circle, about 8 or so meters, and some frustration from him knowing that he's not had a birdie in recent holes, continuing to fight for them. Ville secures his par after going OB.
Yeah, surprising miss there from Miro. But Connor, tell me some scoring average on this hole, because it must be pretty high since this hole has a lot of potential to bring in some danger.
No doubt, almost a half stroke over. This hole averaged 4.45 as a par 4. More bogeys than birdies by percentage of the field, and more doubles and triples than almost any hole other than hole 6. So really doing a lot of damage to the field, and shows just why it's so difficult.
All right. And hole 15. Interestingly enough, shorter in distance, but still a par 5. To start, it's a pretty open hole. You need to just fade before this right side birch trees, somewhere in the middle of the fairway around here. And the perfect drive opens up the small gaps on the edge of the wood line just a little bit. Most players are going through some of those tiny trees on the second, trying to land somewhere on this hillside for their third shot. That ideally is just a short pitch up to the basket. But this hole is getting increasingly tighter once you approach the green. It's very open from the tee, then getting slightly wooded on the second, and the third shot is... the gap is just a couple of meters wide. So a lot of distance on the first shot needed, and a lot of precision on the rest of the shots.
Yeah, we see Niklas with a very nice fighting hyzer throughout the flight, always looking great. Able to position himself for a good forehand around the bend. You'll see Ville look to match. Those extremely tight gaps, which you mentioned being only a few meters wide, do bring an element of chance into this hole on both the second and third throw. Even from a very similar lie, it's very rare that you can hit the exact line that you have in practice or in previous rounds, given just how tight it is. So really testing the versatility and creativity, having to opt and create different lines each round they play this hole. Teemu with a really nice power hyzer as well. Gets way up there past the rest. Very well positioned.
Nice shot there, and it's very difficult to get much more distance than what Teemu got, since you have this bit of a low ceiling on the left side of the beginning of the fairway. So everybody here in great position, and setting up for that scrambly forehand shot. You can see the gaps here are very small. You just have to pick one gap and hopefully hit it with your forehand, which looks like Ville has done just perfectly. And he has a short putter shot left to the green. What a nice shot throw there from Ville.
Niklas with a chance as well, but hitting one of the earliest trees in his line. That will leave him with a lot of distance and potentially still par in play, although he'll need something quite incredible on his next shot. A nice attacking forehand here as well. Skipping his way up the hill. We see Teemu. a fairly low speed disc in his hand, maybe potentially that justice again.
Yeah, just knowing that you don't need a lot of distance on the second shot, as he has flied through or over the 50-meter stake, and inside of 50 meters after 2 shots is what you want. And Niklas here able to find a gap through the trees, somehow scrambling his way to within putting distance. That's a pretty impressive scramble here. And you can see this final part of the fairway is just super tight, and people can find all sorts of lines there. Ville going for the outside hyzer. There is that fairway down the middle, but it's just so difficult to hit that it's almost better to just pick your gap around the outside and go for it.
Oh, Miro with the forehand approach off the cage. Incredible touch and almost throwing it in. As we see these guys continue to attack this extremely difficult green. I like how you expressed it, Elias, that the biggest gaps really should be the ones they lean on. Even if there's smaller ones that may leave them closer, they're happy to get into the circle with the highest probability possible. And Teemu from circle 2, trying to give it a chance off an early tree kick. Unfortunately not finding it. This is Niklas to save an incredible birdie scramble. And he almost finds it, but not quite. Will be left with a par here on 15.
Yeah, and Miro looks to have made the easy birdie, taking a stroke on both of the top 2 players right now. Teemu here. Wow, I didn't expect that. He just misses it from 4 meters and is left with a much more difficult putt here. Gets this one to drop though, and that's a huge bogey to take down the stretch. Gonna give just a free stroke gain to Niklas Anttila here, pushing that lead to 3 strokes.
Yeah, not one that you want to be 3 or even potentially 4 putting on hole 15. The hard work is to get there. Once you are on the green, you definitely are looking to put it in, especially on this hole. As we see both Ville and Miro find their birdies. Niklas takes the par and Teemu takes the bogey. 2-stroke swing for our lower players on this
European
lead card.
Disc Golf Championships 2023. The most important disc golf event of the year is taking place in Estonia in the Tallinn Song Festival grounds from the 16th to the 20th of August. Get your tickets from eurodiscgolf.eu, our sponsors helping to fly the discs.
And hole 16 here, another long par 4 with loads of OB. This hole is pretty much completely open, at least for the drive. You can really pick your line. Just need to hit this wide part of the fairway. Most players are going for a big hyzer with a relatively stable disc. Just try to get 120 to 130 meters of distance off the tee. From there you're set up for a nice forehand approach. Most players in the field going for that forehand on the second shot. OB inside the circle on this hole, so need to be precise. And Ville here, good looking shot, fading more towards the left side of the fairway, which is ideal because then you're flying over the fairway and not over OB, and that is just fine position there.
Absolutely, Miro swinging a similar wide hyzer out there. Good use of the width, leaves himself dead center. Hole 16 was in fact the most birdied by the MPO field on the back 9, so absolutely a hole that you want to pick that up on after a difficult stretch and to maintain pace with the best in the field. Niklas also playing the very similar line, really just that placement shot, trying to get yourself safe with as much progress as possible, but very generous and wide open compared to some of the more recent holes.
And especially now, the rain is gone and the wind is really calm. So there's nothing making this hole more difficult than it has to be. And Teemu there agreeing everybody on the card, perfectly on the fairway. And it's gonna come down to the approach. Who can throw the correct distance with a forehand? It's pretty easy to go too far And Miro actually going for the unconventional backhand.
He has been shown to have that preference throughout the round, has been throwing backhands on predominantly forehand-friendly lines, and that one unfortunately not working out for him as he fades OB. He had a lot of height on that shot and contributing to significant fade. Unfortunately, will be left with a long putt there. Teemu with a picture-perfect forehand approach, curls it up into bullseye. Exactly how you do it. Both Ville and Niklas will look to match now.
Ville, this looks like a bit of a turned over forehand, although he has thrown an overstable disc. Gonna have an outside the circle putt for that birdie. And Niklas, we saw a lot of great forehands from him yesterday, and today we've seen a couple of good ones as well. And this looks to be one of those, as he's just outside the bullseye there, only 5 meters away. To move his round score to 8 under.
Really impressive so far. Unfortunately, Ville with lots of height there. Looks like a right to left wind. Caught the flight plate and just lifted and pushed it. Miro with a chance as well at his par save there. After going OB on the approach, hitting the band. We'll be looking at minimum at the bogey here. This is Ville for his par save, and he catches right side, but even that low, it's able to sneak back out over on the backside. A difficult green and quite a difference putting in the woods compared to these open fields. Significantly more wind comes into play.
Yeah, more wind, but I also feel like the trees around the basket might give a lot of these players an aiming point to aim for, making that putting even a little bit more easy compared to the open ones. But here, Ville tapping in for that bogey after the unfortunate 3-putt. And Miro also with a bogey. Some good scoring separation on this one as the two leaders are pushing their score even further under par. And once again, a great scoring separation hole here on 17 down the stretch. 115 meters. There's this OB line on the right side, just cornering these right side trees that you're trying to get around of. On the left side, this hole suits beautifully for a slight flex forehand. Very similar to hole 10 that we saw earlier on the back 9. Although on this hole you can also throw a flat to hyzer forehand. Just important to get around that corner. It's quite common that you see those flat to fading forehands skip pretty well towards the basket. And I believe the skip is the only way to park this one. Very difficult to get it in the air without at least a small bit of a skip.
Niklas playing the forehand flex. Has been dialed with the forehands all day. That one catching the small mound prior to the tree, preventing a full skip. Needed, as you mentioned, to get all the way there. Will leave himself with a circle 2 look at birdie. Potentially a low ceiling. Teemu, similar to round 1, opting for more of a pure hyzer than the flex shape, but really needing to use the full width, battles with some leaves on the right, and hits the similar mount to Niklas, where they're unable to get the full flare.
Yeah, both going a little bit wide. Let's see if Ville can fix on that. It looks like he has turned this over to the left. Even challenging that OB line that almost never comes into play. Even the spotter, not quite sure which one it is, giving the group call sign. And Miro here actually going once again for the roller. Another unconventional play, but he's not that much of a forehand player. And this is a beautiful roller. Wow. What a great shot.
Yeah, incredible angle control and speed of the roller. I personally find it most difficult to control the distance, and Miro had that absolutely dialed. A great example of his skill set, despite not having the power forehand. Ville with an upshot into the circle. Teemu with his long putt from circle 2. We'll move now to Niklas, who has a chance to make this birdie. And shy, you see that low ceiling plus the distance and the rain. A lot of conditions that were against him on that one.
Yep, and Miro here to get some strokes on the card. And what a birdie that is. Bring me some stats, Connor. How many % of the field got the birdie on this one? It's a pretty tough birdie, right?
Absolutely. Only 16% of the field able to find the birdie, with more bogeys and pars than anything else. Par playing at 60%, so still a pretty manageable 3 as you can see, but Ville finding his bogey there. Miro, part of that 16%, able to secure the 2.
Yeah, Ville has had some putting troubles on this back 9. Pretty surprising, as he was putting very well on the front 9 and usually known for his strong putt. As Teemu finishes there with a good par. Not a great par for him as he's a forehand player, but it's a fine score on this one. As we're moving on to the final hole. Final hole 18. An absolute bomb of a drive for being a par 3. It's 140 meters and even playing slightly uphill. Probably playing closer to 145 in 150. Fortunately though, for these players and everybody on the field, this hole sets up really well for a big distance flex shot. You're trying to just get past all of these trees, hopefully turn something over and get that fade back. There's OB long, which almost never comes into play, and more that OB left and OB right that do come into play if you fade too early or turn over.
And all 4 of these players, even if they're not known specifically for their power and distance, very capable of getting a big line out there and working their way into circle 2 or even potentially circle 1. We see Miro looking to shape a long understable flight and having too much turn will find right side OB par pretty much out of question for him now. Playing for bogey at best, we see Niklas with a beautiful shape and an incredible line. Just pinpointing that late gap, maybe 115 or 20 meters down there, catching the fade at the right moment. A textbook execution from our leader.
Yeah, what a great shot. Niklas once again showing off that he's got some good distance on the backhand. And Teemu has kicked OB. Teemu, who in the first round was almost parked on this one, just 5 meters away, surprisingly has gone OB, and he will either have to proceed to the drop zone or play from where that crossed in bounds for the last time. And Ville also challenging some of those right side trees. You can see the gap is pretty wide, but playing at that said 110, 115 meters away, it gets pretty tight pretty quickly, throwing those high speed drivers. And Teemu here just trying to pitch up for the bogey.
Do you think he was trying to just lay that one up? Or was that a soft bid at it?
I think for sure he was trying to lay that up. There's no reason to run that. And now he's got a bit of a nervy putt left, as Miro is there under the basket.
Both the wind and the rain joining our players for the final hole, testing their focus until the very end of this long round. Teemu here, firing a bit long, accepts his bogey there, potentially looking at the current scores and making a decision for himself. We see Ville securing the par. Niklas to make the statement and end on a birdie.
Wow, and he gets it. What a huge swing at the end of this round. Niklas going to 9 under for the round. A very clean back 9, as you see. No red numbers on the scorecard compared to everybody else with at least 2 bogeys or above on the back 9. And Niklas has somehow got a 6-stroke lead over Teemu. Wow. And as we're taking a look at the top 10 scores, look at that lead by Niklas Anttila. 6 strokes over the entire field. And Teemu, even with finishing a double bogey, still able to hold on to that second place. But third, Christian Kuoksa making some moves, and even bigger moves made by Rasmus Saukoriipi. 8 under, that is the hot round for the day, and Rasmus will be the fourth guy on our lead card for tomorrow. Thank you, Connor, that was a pleasure.
Thank you, Elias, and thank you to our viewers who come and join us for all of this incredible coverage. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, as well as check out the Patreon if you would like to continue supporting European disc golf coverage. We appreciate all of you and hope to catch you on the continuation on round 3. There will be a total of 4 rounds at this national tournament, so stay tuned.